Hello, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects. How are you today? I know I may have seen some of you earlier today when we did an announcement, but now we are online to answer any type of cloud architect questions you may have. So for the next 2 hours, what we're here for is any type of cloud computing career questions you have, we're here to provide you answers. Maybe a desire to be a cloud architect or a solutions architect, and you're curious to find out how. Maybe you find enterprise architecture interesting and you're curious to find out how. Maybe you like networking and you're curious to get your first interview, get your first tech job. So really what this time is it's your time, and we're really here to help you do anything you can to get your first cloud architect job or get the cloud computing job that you desire. So, we specialize in networking as well as cloud computing, but we can help you with a wide variety of IT careers. But it's really about us just trying to help you find what's best for you. Now, the reason we do this is, after 25 years of working as an architect and about 2 decades of helping other people get their first tech jobs or get promoted in tech, I know what it takes to get someone promoted, and I know what it takes to get someone hired. And I do it absolutely every day of the week. I'm always finding someone their best job, and they're always happy. But the point is for the people that I work with, it's very simple because we know exactly what they need to do, because that's all we do. We take people and we get them hired. But if you're not with us and you don't know where to begin, that's why we're here. We found before we even decided to do any of this, we interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people, and we got to see what they knew and what they didn't know. And after interviewing 1,000 people and speaking to recruiters and speaking to hiring managers from all over the world, they keep coming back with the same thing. Mike, we've got lots of people that know how to configure things, but we can't find cloud architects. Help us. And that's what we do. And that's why we have our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We help people get cloud hired. Now, part of being hired is having the right skills. Part of being hired is also being what the managers want. So we can help you figure out exactly what the hiring managers want, and we're happy to tell you. So this is really your time to ask any questions you have about building your best career. Kenya Carl, it looks like you have a question. You said it's a long question. Well, please be the first person to answer the question, Kenya Carl. We love questions around here. You give us questions, it gives us a chance to try and provide some answers to try and do what we can to help. So Kenya, please ask your question. And while we're at it, anybody else that has some questions, please let us know. And while we're waiting for the questions, if you're here to let us know you're here by typing #CloudHired. Now, Kenya, I'm looking forward to that question. Since you said I have a long one, I am happy to give you a long answer. Kenya said, you really appreciate the advice by Mr. Darrell Proctor regarding finding the need where you work and possibly creating a new role. Yes, Kenya Carl, I got to tell you this. I've created roles for myself numerous times where you're in a job and you're in a company and you've got something that you really enjoy doing. And you know what, Kenya Carl? And I'm waiting for your question actually here. What I've done is I've done those other things that I've loved so much. And then what I've done is in the process of doing other things, I like to bring back and show the company the value in those other things. And the next thing you know, Kenya Carl, I've actually created new jobs for myself doing that. So I can tell you, that it's not uncommon to create your own new jobs, and that's realistically this thing that it's there. So happy to answer some more. But if you work for a company and it's a big company, or even if it's not such a big company and you have a role and there's something else that you really desire to do, realistically speaking, go do it. And in the process, just make it a little bit, get your manager's buy-in, get a little bit more, get your manager's buy-in, get a little bit more, get the manager's buy-in. And the next thing you realize at that point, you find yourself in a position where you're just doing a new job. So Darrell's advice, I find very good, and I've actually done it. Now, the second half of your question is you've been tentatively doing this at your current company, which is great. Perhaps you should become more assertive with your own company toward pivoting to technology. Well, Kenya Carl, what I say is when you want to go to technology, definitely let your company know. But wait until you're really solid. See, the thing is, when you tell your company, I love this cloud tech, or I love this network tech, and you start telling them about it, one of two things can happen. One of the things that will happen is going to be as follows, is they're going to move you into the tech, and it's a win. The second thing that can happen, and I've seen this happen, is once they see you want to do tech, they don't have any interest in you for whatever your past thing is. So you got to be really careful. So what I would say is by the time you're ready to apply for the tech, be ready to get hired from somewhere else. So don't tell your employer anything yet. Get better at your skill. And after you get better at the skill and you're completely ready, then be a little more assertive. And that way, if it doesn't work out, you can always go somewhere else. So yes, I've done it. I would keep doing it. I would try and find a place to pivot in your current company if they allow you, but I wouldn't try and do the pivot until that I knew I was ready to be hired somewhere else, just in case the pivot doesn't go through. At least that's the way I would do it, because I can tell you sometimes when you're trying to pivot, people do not like that. So Chris, if there's any either more of this, bring up more of the question, or else go to the next question, please. Ayan Sama, rate these immediate things to learn while working towards cloud career, like networking, Linux, cloud. Ayan Sana, I need you to tell me which cloud career you want, because each one of the cloud careers you want will have a different amount of knowledge that you're going to have in the networking versus Linux versus cloud. And without knowing that, it's just a guess, and I don't like to do guesses with people's career. So if you actually tell me what cloud career, then I can give you some information. But otherwise, it's just going to be conjecture, and conjecture is not really a good way for me to help people with their career. So Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Daniel Pike, when does someone that aspires to be a cloud architect know when it's time to send resumes out? Well, Daniel, I thought I've answered this, but when you can take the lead architect role in one of the classes and do it from start to finish without asking anyone, you're ready. When you can write those kind of architecture documents that we're describing without any help from someone else, then you're ready, Daniel. Until you can kind of do those things, you are not ready, because you won't be able to do the job. So you should be able to design an end-to-end solution, and you should be able to document an architecture. You should be able to write up a good article, easily within 1,500 pages to 2,500 pages. What is the tech? How does it work? And why you use it? And you should be able to give a great presentation around that. When you've got those fundamental skills, the writing, the presenting, the architectural design, then you're there, Daniel. So what I would say is, I know that there was a document that you started to write. I'd love to see what that document actually looks like. And I'd love to see you take one of those lead architect roles in one of the weekly classes. And then from there, see if you can run it to the end. Because when you can run it to the end, that's when you send it out. Don't apply for a job until you know you can do the job, because nothing good is going to happen. When people apply for a job and they're not ready for the job, here's what happens. The company interviews the person, the company doesn't like the person, and then the company marks them down as someone not to interview for the future, or interview never, or wait at least a year. So don't burn bridges. Don't have any negative interview outcomes. Make sure you're ready to actually do that end-to-end architectural design, Daniel. Make sure you can write the way I know we wanted you to write, and I know you can write. It's just, and then from there, that's when you should go send your resume out. When you can do the architectural designs, present like an architect and write like an architect, you will be ready to get hired. So that's when you should apply. Tide, what is the estimated time for a cloud architect to become an enterprise architect? I'm not sure that there is an estimated time, Tide. I think the question is, what do you train for? What you train for determines your career. If you train to be an enterprise architect, you'll be an enterprise architect. If you train to be a cloud architect, you'll be a cloud architect. If you train to be a building architect, you'll be a building architect. So how long does it take to become an architect? It takes however long it takes you to do it. I mean, for me, realistically speaking, it takes me about 8 months to take people with no tech background and turn them into a cloud architect or a solutions architect. It takes me about 4 months to take somebody with a tech background and make them a cloud architect or a solutions architect. An enterprise architect is just a different set of training. So when you're training a cloud architect, it's roughly 50% technical, 50% business. When you're training an enterprise architect, it's like 75% business, 25% technical. So it's just different training, Tide. It's train for the job you want. Now, how long it transitions to go from one career to another. It's, how long does it take you to build a career in the first place? So it's going to be based upon the person. Some people could do it almost immediately. I went straight from a network architect to an enterprise architect to a business architect, back down to, and I've gone back and forth my whole life. So there really is no rule. The rule is just do what you want. I mean, when I went from nurse practitioner practicing internal medicine to network architect in one hop, People said that it was impossible, but it wasn't impossible. Employers need competent, capable, and qualified people. And guess what? There are none. I'm not joking. You interview 1,000 people. If you can hire one person, you're so excited. It's that hard. So just be great. Learn the actual technology. Learn how it works. Learn how it's designed. Learn to write. Learn to speak. Learn to present it. Learn the business acumen. Learn emotional intelligence, executive presence, presentation skills. And that's how you transition into any of these architecture roles. Now, the enterprise architecture roles, they're much more like me. They're much more of an executive role. They're much more on the business side. They're less on the tech. But all these architecture roles, they're all hybrid. None of them are just pure tech. They're all tech and leadership. So that's up to you. It could be done very quickly. It could be done very slowly. And it could be done. The first thing you could do is just go become an enterprise architect from some other jobs. So it really doesn't matter. It's not like you have to be a cloud architect as a stepping stone. So Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Kenya Carl, what is appropriate as a professional and as a member of the consultant design team? I do not want to offend what he will recommend. So I think, Kenya Carl, you're going back to telling your manager you would like to do things. I don't know your exact job, Kenya Carl. So I have no idea what you could tell your manager. Now, yeah, I have no idea what you can tell your manager because I don't actually know what your current job is. If you were to tell me that you were a management consultant, I might have some better ideas, but I have honestly no idea what your job is. And to be able to tell your manager without knowing your manager, knowing what your manager likes and dislikes are, knowing the kind of person they are, their personality type, are they an intuitive type that's not great with numbers but big on vision? Are they a functional type where they've got steps for everything or analytical? There's a lot of other things that, for example, I'd love to answer for you. And if you tell us in one of the classes, like on tomorrow's class, because I know you're one of our students, we can actually help you do that by getting you off mute and asking the question. But that's going to take some iterative process of learning a little about your manager, what they like, what they don't like, things that make them happy, things that make them sad, the company you're in, the job you're in, and all the other things that your company is actually involved in. Oh, you already said that you got the answer to my question earlier, so even better. So, Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Tony, hello, and you're more than welcome for all the information we provide. We'd love to help out. Yassine Swear, you switched your career to IT. Great. Took an online career and passed the solution architect. You have no experience in IT and AWS, just the course, and you don't know how to where to get hands-on and start. So Yassine Swar, let me explain the challenge to you. So I don't actually know what job you want. And if you tell me what job you want, I can tell you where to start. But I will tell you this, the problem with certification training, which is why for the most part, certification training and getting hired in today's world, they're not even related. I mean, they're almost not related. There's a small relationship. But here's the thing. Certification training is the name of a service and how to configure it. S3, how to configure it. But here's the thing. As architects, like cloud architects, we don't configure anything. We design. So for example, taking a course like the AWS Certified Solution Architect and learning how to set up an S3 bucket, if you're an architect, is meaningless because we don't set up S3 buckets. Now, as architects, we determine, the technology and the network in the data center that's going to the cloud, which is just another network in the data center. We design things. We ask the business, business goals, legal requirements, technical requirements, those kind of things. You have to learn. That's called requirements gathering. As architects, we respond to RFIs and RFPs. So, that's a certain type of specific executive communication and sales writing you have to do. We do lots of presentation training. We do lots of ROI modeling. We do requirements gathering. We've got to ask the customer, about their storage, about their compute, about their environment, about their networking, their network topologies, their routing protocols, how their information flows. There's all these kind of things. So there's two ways you could do it. Option one is you could take my course, the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Chris from my team will pop a link to the course as well as a coupon code. And if assuming you wanted to be a cloud architect, this would be the appropriate path. Or if you're not with us, here's what you need to do. You have to understand first that the cloud is nothing more than a network in a data center. Nothing more than that. And what we cloud architects do, Yassine, is we take the stuff that's in the network and the data center and we move it to the cloud. Now, what is that stuff? That stuff is storage. That stuff is servers. That stuff is containers. They're DNS servers. They're load balancers. This is the stuff that we're moving. And then, of course, we've got to move our security. We've got to move our firewalls, our IDS, IPS systems over, our identity and access management systems over. We move our databases over. All that is network and data center things. So the routing, the switching, and the IP addressing, you have to know that. And none of that, literally none of that is going to be covered in Certified Solution Architect Professional Training. So what could you do? You could take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, or you could buy these 4 books, and this will teach you some basic things into networking. Internet Routing Architectures by Bassam Halabi, Routing TCP/IP Volumes 1 and 2 by Jeff Doyle, TCP/IP by Stevens. That'll give you the intro to the networking. It's about 4,000 or 5,000 pages, about $250, but that'll give you your introductory networking. And then if you want to do one of these roles, again, it's covered in my course, but if not, guess what? You can do it on your own. If you're not taking my course, I need you to go to VMware and get about 1,000 pages of documentation on virtualization, because you need to know that much to be able to migrate things over. Then I need you to go to Docker, Kubernetes, and VMware and learn, as well as OpenShift, and learn about containers. Then when you're done learning about containers, I need you to go to F5 and learn about load balancers. I need you to go to F5 and learn about DNS. Then I need you to go to Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and Checkpoint and learn about firewalls and IDS, IPS systems. And then I need you to go to Microsoft and learn about Active Directory. Then I need you to go to Nutanix and OpenStack and learn about, the private clouds that people have. Then I need you to learn, all the technologies that make the cloud computing possible. So now that you know the networking and the data center stuff, what's next to learn? ROI modeling, executive communication skills, some emotional intelligence training, presenting to executives, asking the right kind of questions, and being able to convince a customer to need things. So Yassine, welcome to the cloud. This is the greatest career in the world, but that's where you have to start. The certification piece is just a test. What you need to be able to do as an architect, assuming you want those roles, is being able to take the stuff from the network and the data center and create the design. Now that's what we architects do. Now, if you wanted to be a cloud engineer, by comparison, that's different. The cloud engineer is a builder. So for we cloud architects, it's all about our systems design and our sales and our presentation skills. For the cloud engineers, they're builders. So cloud engineers are going to have to do a lot of time on the CLI. Cloud engineers are going to need a lot of training on the management console. Cloud engineers are going to have a lot of Terraform experience, because they're going to be deploying things as infrastructure as code. Cloud engineers are going to have some scripting knowledge, like Python scripting, maybe some Node.js. Cloud engineers are going to build, and need a tremendous amount of knowledge in the depth of those cloud services. So you can see, the architect, we don't code, we don't configure, we design. It's all business. Whereas the cloud engineer, it's all build. So that'll give you some ideas of where to start. Now, Yassine, if you tell me the exact job you want, I'm happy to build you a plan to get there. But I've given you things to do for the cloud architect versus the cloud engineer. And as far as getting hands-on experience, what we do is, I've taught an 8-year-old to set up an S3 bucket and an EC2 instance in less than 3 minutes. And it's nothing. And the reason I tested this is, when I teach an 8-year-old to do it, look at it this way. If an 8-year-old can do it, nobody's going to pay you $150,000 to $400,000 a year to be a cloud architect to configure an S3 bucket. I taught an 8-year-old in 3 minutes. So that's not what we architects do. We design. The reason we get paid well is there's so much knowledge that you need to know to be able to create these designs, these end-to-end designs. So because of that, because of what we do is transform a business, there's a lot of work for us. And it's a great career. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. I know of no better job than literally being called in to help an organization improve their business through technology. Love it, love it, love it. Trust me, it is a wonderful, wonderful career. I want you to know what to do and how to get started. So I hope I answered your question. If you want to tell me more about any one career, I can tell you exactly how to get there. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Asim, as part of the placement assistance in the Cloud Architect program, what options are available for international job suitors? Do recruiters help them in foreign markets or help them gain jobs only in the US? Asim, 90% of our recruiters are in the US, Canada, and England. So We do have recruiters that do help people find things, but most of our job placement that we're best at is in the US, Canada, and England. Now, that doesn't mean that our recruiters don't help people find jobs outside the US, but I want to say that is where 90% of our strength is. It's inside of the US, Canada, and the UK. And that's where our real strength is in terms of the recruiting market. Now, we've got students all over Europe, all over the Middle East, all over Africa, and all over Asia, and they do well and they get hired too, all the time. But the majority of our job placement help is actually in the US and the UK and Canada. Now, if any of you guys have any more questions, please feel free to ask them, because I know there's lots of people that wanted to ask questions while we start going through these questions. Christine, what about entry-level or junior positions? First position ever in IT, do private projects count? Well, private projects do count, Christine. As far as entry-level positions, I don't look for them. I don't really see any anymore. So here's what an entry-level position is. Somebody that basically goes into the office, puts this thing into a rack like a switch, cables it up, turns it on, and configures it. That's an entry-level position. The entry-level positions, or somebody does the same thing with a server. Guess what? Now that we're on the cloud, there is nobody that racks the server anymore. You go to the cloud and you click 3 buttons and it's done. In today's world with the cloud, there is really no need for entry-level or junior positions anymore. So I tell people to upskill themselves. Don't look for a junior level position. All these junior level positions have been basically remediated by automation. The whole point to going to the cloud is to get rid of the junior level positions. The cloud is simple. Because the cloud is simple, you don't need as many employees. That's why organizations are going to the cloud. Why do you think stores, retail stores, are trying to create automation to get rid of people? Same thing with the cloud. There are no more junior level positions. They're dramatically reduced because junior level positions have a couple of problems. For every junior level position you hire, you need someone relatively senior to supervise the junior level people to make sure the junior level people don't make mistakes. Like the mistake that happened with Facebook last week, which cost Facebook $8 billion because somebody did something wrong. So because of that, these are the kind of reasons organizations typically in a great economy will have junior level people. Because in a great economy, what ultimately happen is the organization is going to have some people, for example, that what's the word I'm looking for? So they're going to in a great economy, you can have somebody that's senior mentor the junior people so that over time the junior people can become senior. But in a bad economy like we have now, or a time where basically things aren't really strong, what you'll have is senior people that can do the job and no junior people that can't do the job without the junior people, because the companies don't have enough senior people to allocate to training the junior people. So Christine, skip the entry-level positions. Become a cloud engineer, become a cloud architect, avoid the help desk, become a network engineer. I did it. My first job was a senior engineer, and I was a lead architect within 6 months of the first time I made the decision to move to tech. I didn't do a health task. I didn't take any junior positions. My first job was a senior position. Here's what I did, Christine. And I was a nurse practitioner. I had a master's in nursing. I went and got certifications, which did not get me hired. In fact, I spent $20,000 I took a CCNP, which is a 10-day, $11,000 boot camp. I took this $5,000 5-day MCSE boot camp. I had a Cisco certified design professional. I applied for jobs and nobody was interested in me. Then what did I do, Christine? I spoke to 50 recruiters and I asked every one of the recruiters what they wanted in the perfect network engineer. They told me, and you know what I did? I said, if this is what they want and this is what I am, I created a list of all the things that I was missing, filled in the blanks, went on my first interview, got hired. And I've interviewed with 5 companies and I've been hired by all 5. So private projects count, Christine. In fact, with the students we have them build clouds, set up server virtualization, build containers, build firewalls, build VPNs. So the students can do it. So the students in our program can say they work for Go Cloud Architects, and they can create a private project section that includes server virtualization for enterprise-wide computing, containers for enterprise-wide computing, firewalls for enterprise-wide security, VPN concentrators for enterprise-wide remote access, Microsoft Active Directory for enterprise-wide authentication. My students all build a cloud, a real cloud from scratch, so they can say designed and deployed either OpenStack Cloud or Nutanix Cloud for enterprise-wide computing. You've got to have some experience, so make sure you get some private projects to make that experience count. My students do it. We're on our servers. But if you're not one of our students, buy yourself a 16-core Xeon server with a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration, and guess what? You will have a very high-powered system that you can build a cloud on, set up Active Directory, you can build some firewalls, some VPN concentrators, lots of virtual machines. You can run Amazon Linux on it if you want, or Oracle Linux, or any Linux you want. This is your chance to go build it. Build yourself a great environment. Every one of my students does. And when that way my students have something that they can say is real experience that employers care about, and it looks great on a resume. And that's part of the reason I've been so successful in getting people hired for the last couple of decades. The following reasons. 1, make the person more likable. 2, make the person technically incredible. 3, get them some experience that employers actually care about, so they can show the employer, not only am I technically competent, I'm willing to go above and beyond. And by the way, look at this. When everybody else was setting up an S3 bucket, which an 8-year-old can do, I built a cloud. Hire me, Mr. Hiring Manager, Mrs. Hiring Manager. I am so good and I am so motivated. I built a cloud. So Christine, you want to go from healthcare to cloud? Do it. I did it. I have students that do it every day of the week. If you come from healthcare, you are already better prepared for the cloud than 90% of the people that are out there. One of the hardest things, Christine, for me to actually teach are that all people in healthcare have are as follows. In healthcare, we must be emotionally intelligent. If we're not emotionally intelligent in healthcare, when people tell us things, we won't be able to calm them down. For example, if I have to tell a patient they have terminal cancer, I have to be emotionally intelligent enough to do that. In healthcare, I've got very good at asking people questions. In architecture or cloud, you have to be great at asking people questions. In healthcare, you must be able to take something very complicated and make it very simple. For example, I don't tell my patients how many millimeters thick their left ventricle is. In order to tell them, I might just say, your heart's not pumping as much as it needs to be, so I'm going to give you this medication to make it pump better. I'm not going to say your left ventricle is this many millimeters too thick, which is decreasing the preload on your heart, which is therefore decreasing the ejection fraction. So those type of how to explain complicated things in a simple manner from technology work. Also, so it's the question answering, it's the being non-judgmental in healthcare, it's the consultative approach. And oh, by the way, Christine, it's the same job. Here's my job as a nurse practitioner. Patient comes in and I ask the patient, what brings you in today? And they say, my back hurts. I do an exam. After I do the exam, I basically make an assessment, which is a diagnosis, and then I come up with a plan. What I do as an architect, I go ask the client, what are your business goals, legal requirements, technical challenges? From there, I baseline the systems. From there, I make a diagnosis, and from there, I make a plan. So I do the same job. Doctor, interview a patient. Architect, interview an executive. Doctor, perform an examination. Architect, examine the organization system. Doctor, make a diagnosis. Architect, make a diagnosis. Doctor, prescribe a medication. Architect, write and draw up and present an architecture. Same job, Christine. So if you want to go from healthcare to tech, do it. I did it. It was the best decision of my life. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. And while Chris is bringing in the next one, if you're having a good time, if you can hit that like button and type hashtag cloud hired in the chat box, that I know you're here, awake, alert, and oriented. And for the healthcare people, that means awake, alert, and oriented times 3. If you're not a healthcare person, don't worry about it. So while we're waiting for that, Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Diamond, you're interested in becoming a cloud architect, but your communication skills aren't that good, and you're somewhat shy. How can I overcome that, and what training can I look for help? Well, Diamond Hawkins, you could take our training, or you could take some other communication skills training, but you must get communication skills training if you desire to be a cloud architect. A cloud architect without communication skills training is a cloud engineer. A cloud engineer is an incredibly smart person. that builds the things that we cloud architects desire or design. And those cloud engineers are really critical people. And let's to be fair, nothing would occur if it was not built by the cloud engineers. But if you want to be a cloud architect, you need to get some communication skills training. In our cloud architect career development training, we do a tremendous amount of communication skills training. We make you do executive writing, executive presentations, and a whole lot of them when we critique you on them. If you're with us, it is covered. If you are not with us, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take an effective speaking course and an executive communications writing course, minimum of 2 courses. And make sure you get practice presenting. Go present in front of a room full of stuffed animals. I don't care. Record yourself. Are you looking at all 4 corners of the room to try and make some eye contact? Do you have open body language? Record yourself. Are you varying your vocal tones? Do you make a point, pause, go to the next point, or are you rambling, dum, 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 dum? These are kind of those things that are there. So go practice it. Talk So People Listen was a relatively good book. I think it was by Sandy Lever. Exercising Influence by Kim Barnes was a relatively good book to kind of help along with these things. Any of the work of Robert Cialdini can also help you. The work of Goldman and Bayatis on emotional intelligence. All of this will help with communication skills. But, get a communication skills training coach. Now, I got to tell you, Diamond, everybody that wants to be an architect needs communication skills training. I will tell you personally that between Cisco funding and me personally, I've spent over $250,000 on communication and soft skills training. And you know what? It got paid back within a year. It made such a difference in my career. So this kind of training is important for all of us, not just some people. So get some communication skills training, either in our program. Speakeasy has some good stuff, but make sure you get that, and you can have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful cloud architect career. Chris, you want to bring in the next one? Pierre Lincoln. Oh, how are you, Pierre? Hey, Mike, you've been learning about cybersecurity for a while now. Should you learn Linux to improve your understanding and how to push the role as a security architect? Pierre Lincoln, it's an interesting question for you. So here's the thing. If you want to be a cloud security architect, you got to be really good at security and really good at design. So what I would say is focus most of your time on design, because that's what architects do, and security. Now, every server that we're going to be dealing with in today's world, for the most part, is going to be Linux. I mean, there'll be some Windows servers, but basically, look at it this way. You can think of Windows as the desktop, Linux as the server. And you're going to have to, in security, do a lot of server hardening. So that means disabling unnecessary services, patch management, really locking down things. So Pierre, it's always good to know Linux because everything runs on Linux. Plus, the firewalls often run on Linux. So should you learn Linux? The answer is yes, but I don't need you to be a Linux administrator. I need you to have architect level knowledge of Linux, like understand how Linux works, understand like the IP tables or the UFW kind of firewall things, understand the kernel and the kernel architecture and the package management, understand the terminal and like the sudo and the super users and your permissions, those kind of things. That's kind of where you really need to be, and understand how to lock stuff down and get pretty familiar with things like the tripwires and the hashing algorithms. So regarding Linux, that's the kind of thing that you should learn, Pierre Lincoln. I would focus most of my time, if I was you, on either architectural design of cloud solutions or security, but a little Linux knowledge is never hurtful, and I would suggest you get some. But not to the level of a Linux admin. Remember, that's a separate career. Asim. Is a business analyst role linked like becoming a cloud architect? Can a cloud architect apply for a business analyst role? So they're different. So here's the thing. A business analyst role is a very junior role. It's looking at business things and analyzing metrics. Now, a business architect is different, Asim. A business architect will take in information from business analysts and then redesign business processes. And it could be how people work, it could be tech. So business architect is a lot like a cloud architect, where the business architect focuses on the business and the cloud architect focuses on the cloud. So can a cloud architect apply for a business analyst role? I don't know why you would assume, Hans, because the business analyst role would be a big step down from a cloud architect role. Now, if you're talking about a business architect role, that could be the same or a step up. But a business analyst role is a much, much, much more junior role than a cloud architect. Anytime you have a job that's got the word analyst in there, it involves more computing. And the closer you are to the computing and the closer you are to the numbers, the farther you are away from the decision making and the executives, the less you will be paid and the harder you will work. So could you become a cloud architect and then take a step back and become a business analyst? Of course you could, but it might cost you at least $100,000 pay cut along the way. It will cost you going from a director type level position to an individual contributor position. So you could, but I definitely wouldn't if I was you. Now, if you happen to find that you're a cloud architect and you enjoy the business side, it would make much more sense to become an enterprise architect, which will pay you more than the cloud architect, and then potentially a business architect, which might pay you 3 times more the business analyst role. But you definitely wouldn't want to go from a cloud architect to a business analyst. Definitely the wrong direction, unless you just really hate being a cloud architect. If I can bring you, Chris, if you can bring in the next question. Okay, sir, is there a module for networking for preparation for CCNA? Well, CCNA AK is nowhere close to enough networking knowledge to be a cloud architect. So the networking that we teach in our program is a hybrid between a CCNA and a CCIE. Here's the thing. We do take the things from the CCNA level, such as VLANs and NAT and 802.1q tagging and trunking and a little bit of spanning tree. But we typically get into some OSPF, which is typically more CCNP, and we get heavy into BGP architectures, and that's CCIE level. So we have a lot of networking in that program. AK, my CCIE number is 7417. I passed the CCIE exam over 22 years ago. So that gives you an example, or about 22 years ago, how long I've been in networking. And obviously I was a CCNP and other things before that. So the answer is yes, we get very heavy into networking. Without networking, you've got nothing. Networking is the foundation for everything. And here's the really good news. Almost nobody knows networking other than network engineers and network architects like me. So when you know networking, you can design things that are so much better. So much better. Better availability, better performance, lower costs. So being in the networking side is great. Asking networking questions, AK makes me really happy. That is exactly what it takes. So in this particular case, Chris, if you can bring in the next question. And please feel free to keep asking questions. We love answering them. Yassine Swar, thanks a lot for your answer. The thing you want to start is a career in IT. Good. IT is a great place. You're fascinated by cloud architect, but you still need a job to get in the door. What do you think your best job to look for to start? I would think that would be a cloud architect. So, Yassine, people say this to me, and I really don't understand it. If you want to be a doctor, go be a doctor. Don't take a stop as a nurse. Then don't go work as a physical therapist. Then don't go back to school to be a pharmacist. Go be a doctor. You want to be a solution architect or a cloud architect? I recommend you go be one. I recommend you get the training. I recommend you become great. And I recommend you become B1. So that's the only thing that I can suggest. Now, if you wanted to be a network engineer first, you could go learn networking. And networking would help you in your cloud role. But guess what? It's going to take you a good year or more to become good at networking, to do networking for a couple of years, just to go back and then try and learn the cloud and learn all the business and learn all the architecture. You'd have to start from scratch. So any career that you take a first job, you're going to have to learn a set of skills for that. And they're going to be a completely different set of skills than the architecture job. So if you want to be an architect, the best thing to do is go get great at architecture and be an architect. Because otherwise you're going to do one career and you're going to, realistically speaking, let's say you picked another career. If you went new to IT, you're not going to know any of that either. So since you want to start a career in IT, so it's going to be just as hard for you to learn help desk as it is cloud architecture. Now, if you learn help desk, it will cost you 5 to 10 years in your career progression. So again, I don't recommend it. But if you want to be an architect, go study architecture and be an architect. You want to be a DevOps engineer, go study DevOps. You want to be a maintenance person, study SysOps. train for the job you want, and go get the job you want. My first job was a senior network engineer, and I was the lead architect within 6 months of the world's largest ISP. And the only reason I was a senior network engineer instead of architect is they didn't really have architects in those days. They called us design engineers when they made us architects. And I went in as a different kind of engineer. That's the thing. The point is go train for the career you want and be that. I mean, I'm a nurse practitioner. In order to be a nurse practitioner, I trained to be a nurse practitioner. You know what? If I go to the hospital, I do nurse practitioner things. But I didn't train to be a nurse well, actually, I did, so we don't want to go there. Well, how did I become a nurse practitioner? This is the way not to do it. So I became an EMT. Then I became a paramedic. Did that for 7 years. Then became a nurse. Did that for a couple of years. Then went to graduate school to be a nurse practitioner. All in all, I wasted 10 years of my life to get to a goal. And when I could have just, done it in 6 years, I spent an additional 4 years wasting time going to places that did absolutely nothing for me. Train for the job you want, get cloud hired. Master the skills necessary for the job you want, get cloud hired. There's nothing that says you have to take something just to get your foot in the door. Be great at what you do. Be so good that they can't not have you. Train for what you want and go after it. There's nothing getting in your way. Just go after it. So, point is, you want to be a cloud architect? Go be a cloud architect. You want to be a solution architect? Be a solution architect. Get yourself some great training that teaches you how to do end-to-end system design, how to document it, how to present it, how to do an ROI model on it. Learn how all the tech works and how you design it, and go get it. You're going to be great, Yasim. There is nothing needed to hold you back. Just go conquer the world. When you tell people, they'll be like, yeah, that's hard. And you know what? I've been told that's hard, and I've been told things are impossible my whole life. Guess what? I transitioned from healthcare to tech. It was no big deal. I get students with no tech background hired every single day of the week. There's not a day that goes past, or almost not a day that goes past, that I don't get informed by one of my students that they got their first cloud architect or solution architect job. And half of these people never worked in tech in their life. So, Yasin, you want to be a cloud architect? Go be a cloud architect. Be a great one. Now, remove all the stuff. Remember, architects, there's no coding. There's no configuration. There's no scripting. There's no Terraform. There's no Python. There's none of that as architects. We architects are system designers. So become an expert on system design. Become an expert on the network and the data center technologies, because that is the stuff you're going to take and move to the cloud. And the cloud is just a network and a data center. Do that, and you will have any career you want. You'll never have a problem getting in jobs, and you will have a life that you will love. So go for the job you dreamed. Go get yourself cloud hired, Yasim, and you'll do great. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, and please bring in additional questions if you have it, and hit that like button if you're having a good time today. Kenya Carl, wow, skipping junior positions is a valuable insight. Thanks for the question and the answer. It sounds like we need to focus on the end goal. Kenya Carl, exactly. Take your end goal, and whatever that end goal is, and then figure out where your starting point is. And if this is the end goal and this is the starting point, you do a gap analysis to find out everything that's missing to get you to that end goal. And then it's just about building the perfect plan to fill in every little step necessary to go from where you're at to everything the employers want, and go get a great job. And you know what? Here's the thing when it comes to interviews. People seem to think it's all competency, but it is not. 50% of a candidate's interview score refers to their abilities, and the other 50% is their likability, their emotional intelligence, their communication skills, their executive presence, or je ne sais quoi, or gravitas. All this other stuff, that's what they're looking for. So when it's your first tech job or we're switching over, focus on both. Let's say we can get you to 40 out of 50 on technical competency, which is an amazing feat. Almost never find that in reality. But we can get you to 50 out of 50 on the likability. When someone like me interviews you, you will outperform people with lots of experience. So get what you want. Start with the end goal, work your way backwards. That's how you would accomplish anything good, and you can do it. Now, Kenya Carl, I know you can. I know where you're being trained, and I know all the great things you're doing, so I know you'll get there. But realistically speaking, if you have a goal, build a plan, conquer your dreams. The only thing keeping us from doing anything complicated as a rule is our minds. We're in our own way. Let's get out of our own ways and go do whatever you want and win. And I know you all can win. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Tony, as an architect, how much work can be remote? As much as an engineer, you don't mind going to a company, but you definitely enjoy and are more productive in your home office. So, Tony, as an architect, about as much of it is going to be remote as an engineer, probably more. See, the engineers typically have to go to the office more than the architects because the engineer is the one that's going to actually be on the computer. The architect is going to be more on a presenting mode. So, Tony, as an architect, you'll probably travel more because you're going to have to go meet with clients and really meet with those executives. But as far as going to an office, you'll almost never go to an office. I was an architect. I started being an architect back in 2000. I started working remotely in 2000. Now, a lot of the engineers went to the office, but the architects, we did not because, we had a much bigger, more global role. So you'll typically work much less in the office as an architect than you would as an engineer. But you will travel. Now, how much you're going to travel will depend upon the company you work for and the level of seniority you are. And what I mean by that is a regular architect that's relatively new with like 1 or 2 years experience is probably going to be working from home most of the time and traveling a small percentage of the time to meet with clients. Now, once you're like me and you've been an architect for a couple of decades and you've got a track record of being a business transformation specialist, if I actually traveled as much as my customers required, I'd be in 3 countries per day. Now, I don't. I will tell you, in most of my career, I did travel extensively because I was an architect and there were very few people that had the skill that I had. So it would be normal for me to start my day in Palm Beach, maybe give a speech in DC, maybe give a speech in San Jose later that day, be in England the next day, Dubai the day after that, Hong Kong the day after that, Melbourne the day after that, back to Dubai, back to Berlin or something like that. That would be the kind of life that I had working as an architect for Cisco. But in today's world, very remote, more remote than the engineer, but there still be some travel. But Tony, it's going to be good travel. Like you're going to be traveling and it's going to be not uncomfortable traveling. You're not going to be spending time in bad places. You'll have a huge budget to travel with you and you'll be spending in nice places because architects are generally executives. So it will be a wonderful, wonderful job. I wouldn't worry about going to the office. I think going to the office is dead for tech professionals. At Cisco, we didn't even go to the office 20 years ago, and now the rest of the world is starting to catch up. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Melissa. Hi, Mike. Good afternoon. You have a criminal justice experience. That's great. Are there any cloud specializations or recommend that where that history will come in? Well, here's the thing. So criminal justice, let's realistically see what goes on in here. So from the lawyer perspective, there's an iterative process of looking, and what the lawyers do, Melissa, is pretty much speaking is this. You look at 1,000,001 pages of code of law, and then you look for things that actually would be exclusions to preclude someone from being charged, be able to possibly not necessarily take some evidence and things like that. So, these are kind of those kind of things. Is there a lot? The answer is no. Now, the only thing that I would say would actually be transferable is in law enforcement, criminal justice, there is a lot of question answering and interrogations. So, Melissa, if in the criminal justice world, you learn the polite interrogation, where basically you make someone at ease and you ask a bunch of questions. And in the process of answering questions, you get to find out things. Now, I got to tell you, that would be highly useful. So anytime you did that with a degree of integrity. Now, I know law enforcement's allowed to lie. That's something you can't get away with as an architect. People will feel you and they will feel that inauthenticity. But in law enforcement or criminal justice, asking questions is good. In criminal justice, you also do a lot of research really fast. Like you start looking through law books. And again, architects, we do a lot of research. So I would say those two things will come in handy. But Millicent, if you've had to do any consultation, that will come in handy. If there's a heavy degree of communication skills, that will come in handy. Those communication skills that come from other careers other than technology make it much easier. In fact, there's an architect I know that I was going to work with him a year ago. And this guy was in England and he said, Mike, I want to be a cloud architect. And I said, tell me about your history. And he said, I've never worked in tech. I said, I don't care. Tell me about your history. He said, I worked in sales. I said, you'll be hired by AWS in 6 months. And he was. So the point is, those are the kind of things, the things that get you communicating well. Managers love it. This is really critical skill to be able to communicate well. So take that with you. It'll help you a lot. Asim Hands, most of the cloud architect positions are related to specialization of one provider. That's actually not true. My program is vendor agnostics. How do these converge? So Asim, here's the thing. A year ago, everything was AWS. Now it's about 50% AWS and 50% Azure as a primary, approximately, but there is no such thing, Asim, anymore as just AWS or just Azure. Now, I will tell you that every single person graduates my program with what I consider a basic intro certification, which is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's a basic introductory certification. And I know others wouldn't consider the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional as basic and intro level. But the way we train architects, that Certified Solution Architect Professional is just basic. It's kind of like intro. And I'd say that we spend 20 hours covering that, and the other 230 hours covering cloud architecture. Now, I'm also going to tell you, Asim, that in every single class where we have an architecture, my students always design the architecture for a minimum of 2 clouds, generally 3. They typically design AWS and Azure, but sometimes they do AWS, Azure, and Google. Sometimes they do AWS, Azure, Oracle. I teach people how to be a cloud architect, and I don't teach people how to drive a Mercedes and then say, no, wait, you're going to drive a Honda. You need special training because I didn't really teach you how the car worked. You know, if you teach it the broken way, which is what the AWS training is, which is like, here's an S3 bucket, here's an EC2 instance, here's an ELB. But if you don't teach anybody what it is, it's irrelevant. But if you teach someone what is a virtual machine, it doesn't matter if it's a virtual machine on Azure, an EC2 instance, or something Google Compute Engine. And any one of my students can design on any one cloud, anywhere, anytime, because they understand the tech. So Asim Hans, I think you're asking the question the exact opposite direction. The question of is, what on earth could you do knowing the name of a service and how to configure it like in a certification? The answer is nothing. It's nothing. There's nothing you could do with it architecture-wise. But if you actually understand what is the tech, what is a load balancer, whether it's an Azure load balancer, a Google Cloud load balancer, or an AWS Elastic load balancer, all you need to know is if you need a network or an application, because they're the only 2 kinds that exist. And even the gateway load balancer is just another flavor of the network load balancer. It's all the same tech. So we teach people how to use the cloud. We teach people how to design the cloud. If that cloud's OpenStack, Ansible, Nutanix, AWS, Azure, Google, our students can do it all. We have no choice. Just training AWS, the people will be sitting on the sidelines, never getting hired. Same thing with Azure. There's no such thing as a cloud architect that only knows one cloud. In today's world, you've got to know more, so we teach them all. But we do it in a vendor agnostic manner. But we still make sure our people get what I call the intro cloud certification, which is the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Anything less than that, just honestly, it doesn't even count. That's a basic intro to junior level cloud computing. We teach that, and then what we teach is the rest of the stuff that makes people great architects. Design, networking, data center technologies, business acumen, communication skills, leadership skills. The things that make somebody an architect, the things that double their salary, the things that get people hired, those are the things we're focused on. We're focused on creating the world's best architects, the kind that would be hired by the best companies. So that's why we have to do it this way. But of course, we do focus on AWS and Azure primarily because they're the 2 main cloud providers, and our students know how to work on both. But some of it. Yes, as Melissa said, please like everyone. Subscribe if you're not a member. Tell other people to do so. So thank you so much for remaining that for that. Asim Hans, thanks for asking your earlier question on recruitment. Would the recruiters help international job seekers move to the US? Sometimes. How viable is this? Sometimes. Would U.S. companies even prefer foreign imports? Nobody prefers foreign imports, Asim. In fact, for an organization to hire a foreign person, what they actually have to do is they have to justify that they can't find someone locally to do their job. Now, I'm going to tell you, it is so hard to actually find someone that is actually capable of actually doing the job that we pretty much always have to sponsor H-1B visas because it's nearly impossible to actually find someone that's capable. That's the challenge, is finding someone that's capable. So there's lots of people that do it. One of my students recently moved to Canada and just got an incredible job. So the answer is, it happens all the time. But, that's up to you. That's up to your planning. That's up to you being great, getting all your documentation great, getting with the right recruiters, and convincing those recruiters that you're special. Now, all that specialness isn't just going to be based on your tech. It's going to be based upon proving to people you're special. What is that? It's your leadership, it's your soft skills, your emotional intelligence, executive presence, business acumen, married with your tech. But yes, we see it all the time. I get asked to cover customers in Japan. I get asked to answer customers in Europe. People, my friends in India cover customers in Japan, paying Japanese wages, which are 3 times higher than US wages, at least the ones that I get. So the point is, there's plenty of them. So you just have to go through the right process, find the right recruiters, and the recruiters have to be connected to lawyers, because there's legal firms that are responsible for that paperwork. And companies will pay the recruiters to find somebody to do this, because it's near impossible to hire a cloud architect. I don't think you understand. You could interview 5,000 people and not find a single hireable person. So it's just that hard to find a competent person. So if you're capable and you're competent, you should be able to do that. It won't be a problem. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Christine says, how much time should you allocate to be great or an expert at your desired position? So there's a difference, Christine, between great and being an expert. An expert takes at least 10,000 hours in a small area. So I spent 10,000 hours on just BGP. I'm a BGP expert. So there's that. Now, how much time does it take to be great, Christine? I would say for my students, I've got a 500-hour training program. And at the end of the 500-hour training program, if they do the 500-hour training program and they do the homework on their own, they're pretty darn good. And pretty darn good means better than most people with 5 to 10 years experience. And pretty darn good means completely hireable and paid very well. Now, having said that, to become great, we're dealing with about 5 years. To become really, really good, we're talking about here. Now, Christine, if by comparison, there's 2 ways you can do these architecture roles. And there's a bit of a divergence. So let's say you start here as the base architect. Now you can be 10% more technical as the base architect. And if you're more technical as the base architect, you're going to focus more on the technology. Now, if you take the more technical side of the architecture, it's going to crush your salary. Whereas if you take the more business side of it, your salary is going to go up a lot higher. So you've got the choice. You can focus on the technical side, or you can focus more on the leadership side, the emotional intelligence, presence, presentation skills, gravitas. There's that. Now, Christina, I got to tell you, I found, it could be me, it could be others, but with my healthcare background, the leadership piece comes a lot easier to me. Because in medicine, it's all about emotional intelligence and communication skills and presentation skills and convincing the patient to take the Coumadin, which they don't want to take because they heard it was rat poison, for example. But they need to take the Coumadin not to get a massive stroke from their AFib. So what I would say is, if you're new to tech and you're in a really intensive program, give yourself about 8 months to basically learn the job and get hired. And then give yourself about 5 years to be great. In a role. But 5 years, you can be really great. And truth be told, in 2 years, if you really put your time in, you can really, really be very, very, very good. You have to understand, my definition of great is like an expert that the world's going to come search for. Inside of 2 years, you can be amazing if you really put your mind to it. Put into context, within 2 years of training, I had consulted for 9 of the 10's world largest internet service providers on how to redesign their backbones or optimize their BGP or MPLS routing. So that'll give you something, for example, that I did inside of 2 years. So you can be pretty darn great inside of 2 years. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, please. Victor Wilhelm, hi Mike, cloud hired, wonderful. Thanks so much for all you do. And you're more than welcome. You have a few months of hands-on knowledge and experience as a Windows admin, okay. Linux admin, okay, and solution architect and no coding experience. But you're not so confident. You're already looking for more training. So you're already looking for more training. Which cloud architect career will I advise? Victor, which cloud architect career do you desire? That's the one I advise. It has nothing to do with picking one out of a hat. It has to do with finding something that you're going to like. Mark Twain said, make your vacation your vocation and you'll never work a day in your life. That's what I did. I work 16-hour days, but I don't work. I mean, this morning I was working, arguing with my internet service provider because they messed up my DNS records. They deleted a CNAME record and wouldn't let me add it back in. So that was work, trying to deal with an ISP that basically where my DNS servers were hosted, where they made a DNS change on their own and wouldn't allow us to fix them. Now that, let me tell you, that was frustrating for me. But if you want more training for an architect, Victor, we have training to get you there. But what kind of architect? Only you can tell me what's interesting. Do you want to focus on the network side of it? Do you want to focus on the business side of it? Do you want to focus more on the business side than the other architects? Do you want to focus on the big data side? Do you want to focus on the security side? I don't know. What do you like, Victor? That makes the determination. You can do anything. I can give you 100 different architect roles, and they're all great. What do you enjoy? Do you enjoy networking? Great. Do you enjoy security? Great. Database is great. Data analytics, great. Victor, you tell me what you like and I can give you some options, but I don't want to just tell you a career based out of nowhere. I want you to tell me what you enjoy. Now, I will tell you this. Anything in the networking is usually pretty good. Do you know why I like networking? No one knows networking for the most part. So when it comes to these supply and demand curves, when you've got a critical need for networking people and a shortage of supply, the salary goes up. Security. The cloud's inherently less secure than the data center. You can secure the cloud, great, but the cloud has more entry points than the data center, and the cloud is a much higher value target than the data center. So guess what? Cloud's higher risk. So if you're on the cloud, you need security, just like the data center, but you need more of it. But now everything's going online, and the more stuff that goes online, the more the security. But now also think about it, Victor. Organizations are collecting data from everywhere. There's data sources everywhere, which means databases, relational databases, data warehouses, NoSQL databases, big data stuff, also kind of cool. But there's data coming from everywhere. So for the people that can analyze the data and do something with the data to make better inferences, like the data scientists, again, they're there. The cloud has all kinds of automation. So realistically speaking, what I'm trying to tell you, Victor, is you can do anything you desire. Tell me what you like and I'll tell you how to get there. So the question is not what you could do. The question is, what do you want to do? Because you can do one of literally 50 different jobs on the cloud. You can make up your own companies. You can do anything with enough time, effort, money, and love, all focused on the right things. So let me know where you want to be, and I can help you get there. And then Chris, if you want to. Nagaraj, you have experience in software-defined networking, no formal networking. What is the gap you're missing to be a good cloud architect, and what answers should you solidify on networking? So Nagaraj Rao, so the little bit of SDN stuff that you did with VMware, I know you because we've spoken, is a start. I would say BGP is going to be absolutely critical. I would say learning how to create an IP addressing scheme for an enterprise is essential. I would say a tremendous amount of knowledge in NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, NAT for overlapping IPs, NAT to collect the internet, all kinds of NAT things, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, Ethernet over MPLS, VPLS, the other forms of SDN, Nagaraj, like the Cisco things and the SDN on the way to the cloud, I would say would be pretty important, far deeper than the kind of stuff that was in that VMware thing. So routing protocols, IP addressing, quality of service, network-based security, those would be the networking things that I think you should focus on. And then there's lots of stuff outside of networking, but you asked the networking things. So those are the networking things. Jill Shaw, do you need certification from Azure and AWS to get hired? Honestly, Jill, you don't need any certification to get hired. Certification it gets no one hired. Well, that's not true. If you're a Cisco certified internet expert like me, that generally will get you hired because that exam is so hard that to pass it, you realistically speaking have to be an expert, but you also have to prove it. But these cloud exams are nothing compared to the CCIE. I read 75,000 pages to pass the CCIE. You can pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional in 500 pages. 75,000 versus 500 to put into context. CCIE, documents reading out to this. Certified Solution Architect Professional is kind of a little bit of nothing. So the key is you don't need any certifications. Now, what you do need is knowledge, and what you also need is an interview. So here's what we do with certifications, Jill. We like certifications because they show that you've been able to pass a vendor's exam, which doesn't mean that much, but they show that you've done it. It's one checkoff list. Vendor certifications signal the hiring manager that there's a chance, even a small chance, but a chance that you actually know something. That is already good. So what do we like to do, Jill, is we like to get people certifications for the following reasons. It will help someone get an interview. Now, it won't get anybody hired, but a certification will get someone an interview. And if you can't get an interview, you can't get hired. So what we do is we look for the certifications, Jill, that help people get an interview. What is the certification that helps people get the best interviews? It's one of two. It's the Azure Expert or it's the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. In our experience with the recruiters, these are the two best. So we like one of those two. Now, Jill, since the cloud is a network and a data center that's been virtualized, you either know the cloud or you don't know the cloud. And if you truly know the cloud, you know exactly what's going on. So what do we recommend? For example, is it that we're actually recommending? We're recommending as follows. We're recommending that you get one of those, AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional or the Azure Expert certification. That's my recommendation. Recommendation 2 is, Jill, find some specialty that you're interested in. If it's security, for example, do this. Get the Certified Solution Architect Professional and maybe a CEH Master or a CISSP. If it's networking, Jill, get a Cisco Certified Network Professional or maybe an Aviatrix Multi-Cloud Network Engineer and mix that with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. So Jill Schaaf, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take one thing from the industry, because the industry for certifications mean much more to the hiring managers than the cloud certifications. And after those certifications, for example, what we recommend you do next is then what we want you to do is get an industry certification. So one big industry certification, one cloud certification, and you should find yourself in some really great shape. But you definitely don't need both. And again, the certifications are just to get you an interview. The knowledge is what gets you hired. SCX Master, what kind of hands-on training is done during the leadership training? Good leadership training should have you do the following. It should have you present. It should have people, when you're presenting, people in the room that cause conflict, to see how you as a leader can control the conflict. So, and at least when we do leadership training, there's lots of presentations. We create lots of stressful environments. We create environments that cause conflict to see how people will manage it. We do all kinds of things to create a work-like environment. At least that's some of the things that we do. When my students design projects, I occasionally become the cranky CEO, where if people ask the wrong questions, I become unhappy intentionally to show people like that. So, at least when we do leadership training, we put people in the actual positions that they would for the real job. And we try and push buttons and we try and test certain things. We do it in a friendly way. But, when you're in a controlled lessons environment, hands-on means you need to practice some of these skills. So we have lots of ways that we get people actually doing things. I won't say too much because there's our proprietary leadership ways that we describe things. But we've got some heavy background in leadership training. And realistically speaking, we're very, very heavily here on the leadership training side of the world. So please ask any kind of questions that you actually have, and we are more than happy to answer them. Feel free to ask any kind of questions on building your cloud architect career, questions about our training, like our Cloud Architect Career Development Program or our newly released Tech Interview Mastery Program. Any of these kind of things that you want to ask questions for, please do so. Hit that like button so we know that you're here, you're liking our content, because it takes a lot of effort and work to put the level of content that we actually put out on our channel. And we do this because we want to make sure that you have access to the best quality training that's out there. So please, by all means, we'd love to work with you. If you've got questions, please come and answer them. So are there any more questions, Chris? Melissa, do you plan on creating a more advanced cloud architect course for those who have gotten their solutions professional, since you said the program was just an info? If so, you're taking that too. So Melissa, the answer is yes. I do have other courses coming. The answer is absolutely. And these courses that are coming out are going to be for people that have graduated. For example, Melissa, I have a leadership program which has been completely filmed. Now, in this leadership program, for example, and then I'll get to your questions. So for this leadership program, we're going to get people to have the skills to be the VP level or greater. And it's taken people from Cisco, people that had worked at Zoom, people that had worked at Booz Allen Hamilton, people that had worked at Citrix. We all got together and created this program. So it's got 50 years of executive experience. That's the one that I'd recommend, Melissa. Look, I have another tech program that's deeper. But see, here's the thing, Melissa. Once you're an architect, a good architect, you've got two ways you can focus on your career. Melissa, you can focus on getting deep technical. You know what? That's great. Or you can focus more on these leadership principles. Now, I'll tell you this. If you focus more on the leadership principles, it'll double your salary as opposed to focusing on the tech. But you can do whichever makes you happier. So the answer is yes. I've got a very deep cloud network architect program that's really, really, really deep. It's CCIE level deep, and that's coming very soon. And the reality is I also have an extremely deep leadership program that I'm very proud of. I've showed it to people across numerous companies, and they're like, oh my God, Mike, this is something really massive. So yes, I will have a deeper one technical, but I will also have much more important leadership courses. So the key is, we've got it. We've got you covered, Melissa. Feel free to ask questions in the Tuesday or Friday class. And we've got a lot of things coming up to take you from cloud architect to distinguished cloud architect and all the other VP level roles and above. And they're coming really, really, really soon, Melissa. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Hi, Christine. I hope you do join the course. I'd love to work with another healthcare provider. Thank you, Kenya Carl. Kenya joined with us, and I don't know, it's been a real pleasure working with Kenya. She's actually in Florida right now. At least I think you are. So if you're in Florida like me, I hope you're really enjoying it. Christine, what do I think about SANS certification? I have the basic cloud one, and they were pretty thorough, although you think you need. Christine, I am not big on certifications, and let me tell you why. I am big on things that get you hired, Christine. So the Certified Solution Architect Professional will get you hired. Or it'll help you get hired, for example. The Cisco Certified Network Professional will help you get hired. The Aviatrix Multi-Cloud Network Engineer will help you get hired. These kind of things will help you get hired. But realistically speaking, it's your knowledge of the network and the data center that's going to get you these positions, your business acumen, your communication skills, your emotional intelligence, executive presence. I bet you have a lot of that coming from healthcare. I really do. And I bet you all we have to do is tune you. And coming from healthcare, I think it's going to be a lot easier than you think. So super excited to discuss this with you. And if you desire to work with us, we would absolutely love to work with you. Love working with people from healthcare. But SANS certification is not one of my things. Cosmic confusion. Hi, Mike. How do we go about choosing the correct pathway for both AWS and Azure? There are too many pathways of this kind. It's confusing. On top of that, which cloud platform to learn first? Okay, cosmic confusion. I'm going to make this real simple. Learn the cloud, not a cloud provider. So when you get into your car has a steering wheel. It has a gear shift. It has a turn signal. It has an accelerator. It has a brake. It's got mirrors. It's got a transmission. Every car has it. Cosmic confusion. If you learn what is a steering wheel and what are the brakes and what are the accelerators, you can drive any single car in the entire world, and it will never be a problem for you. You'll be able to drive anything in the entire world. So if you learn routing, switching, firewalls, VPN concentrators, block storage, object storage, file storage, identity and access management, VPN concentrators, IDS, IPS systems, you know the cloud. And guess what? You know every single cloud, because it doesn't matter which cloud you're on. The reason people can't get hired, cosmic confusion, is because they study AWS, the name of the service and how to configure it, and then they're asked to design it. And they have no idea why or how, because they don't know what they're designing. Cosmic confusion, what are people designing? I'm going to tell you right now. They're taking the things out of the physical data center and moving it to the cloud, which is just no different than a virtual data center. So they go from a real data center to a virtual data center. That's the whole thing. So if you learn the stuff in the data center, there's nothing else to learn cosmic confusion. It's all the same. So that's really all it's going to take, cosmic confusion. So learn the cloud. Now, at this point, now you should pick a cloud provider to make it your home cloud provider. Should it be AWS or Azure? It depends. AWS, huge cloud. Azure, huge cloud. To me, cosmic confusion, it looks like the momentum is with Azure, not AWS. It looks like more organizations are going to Azure right now than AWS. It's a gut feeling. It's based upon what recruiters are telling me. It's based upon what hiring managers are telling me. I'm seeing a lot more shift towards Azure than AWS. I still recommend right now learning AWS first, getting that AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's basically your best intro-level certification for the cloud. It's probably the only cloud certification you'll ever need. So I would say get one of them. But before you think about all of it, learn all these things. Now, cosmic confusion, I'm going to tell you this. People make the cloud complicated. If you learn the network and you learn the data center and you do it the way I want you to, where you learn about servers and containers and firewalls and IDS, IPS and block storage, object storage, file storage, etc., you'll always know what to do. To put it into context, I wanted to take the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. Why? Because I don't use the Google Cloud at all. Never have. Great cloud. Just never had the opportunity to work with it. So what I had said to my team was, I said, if our AWS training is good, I should be able to take the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam and pass. And of course, my team laughed at me and they're like, Mike, you're crazy. And I said, if it's any good, we should be able to buy the $30 side of X-Bug and within 2 days pass the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam, which is the hardest cloud computing exam in the world. So what did I do? I ordered it from Cybex. And on Saturday, I read the book. On Sunday, I read the book. On Monday, I took the exam. And within 45 minutes, I was done answering the questions for the Google exam and passed it. Why? Why was it so simple for me? Why was it not complicated? Why was it a whole lot of nothing? It was a whole lot of nothing for one reason and one reason alone. I knew the network and the data center, and the cloud was just it. So if it was a virtual machine, it doesn't matter whether it's an EC2 instance, compute engine, or something from cloud, what do you call it, from Google. It doesn't matter. It's all the same tech. Load balancer, same. No SQL database. It doesn't matter whether I choose DynamoDB or Google Cloud Bigtable or MongoDB or Apache Cassandra. If you know the tech, you know every cloud provider. You don't even have to think about it. So first learn the tech, then pass one of these, the AWS or Azure Expert or AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional. That's your basic intro level cert that's going to help you get a job interview. And then it doesn't matter which one, just pick one of those two. Just make sure you understand the technology and you'll always be good. Know the tech, how it works, why organizations use it. If you're having a good time, if you can hit that like button, cosmic confusion. The question you're asking is completely dependent upon the job. If you are an architect, you will never script or code in your entire life. If you're an architect, you will never configure. If you're an architect, you're going to design, present, sell, and lead. That's all you'll do as an architect. Now, the knowledge to design that cosmic confusion is enormous. But as an architect, you need no scripting languages. Now, if you want to be an engineer, like a cloud engineer, cosmic confusion, then you will need a lot of scripting, specifically Python, probably Bash, and Node.js. But if you are an architect, scripting is not a relevant skill. That's where people get in trouble. Cloud engineers script, cloud architects design, train for the job you want, have the skills for the job you want, get hired for the job you want, but don't have the wrong skills for the wrong job. That's where people get themselves into trouble. So, is it possible to complete your training in less than 13 weeks? So, Mr. Youssef, is it possible to complete our training in less than 16 weeks? Yes. You have a 13-year background in IT and user support. So the answer is, could you get through my program in less than 16 weeks? Yes. I had a Nigerian student. He was with me 3 weeks, and he got hired by AWS as a technical account manager. I had a student recently come join my program. He had a networking background. He was in my program less than 4 weeks, and he's now a senior solutions architect with AWS. I have lots of people that completed in less than 16 weeks, but they put in a lot of effort to do so. I don't want to say that you will do it in less than 16 weeks. I've had plenty of students that have done it in less than 16 weeks, plenty. But I've also have students that need a little more than 16 weeks. We don't care. And what I mean by that is, if we take someone into a 16-week program and they need 6-8 months to get hired, we keep them in there until they get hired, upwards of a year, because we want to make sure that students get hired. Because the whole point of doing training is to get a job. We don't do training just for the sake of training. We do training to get people hired. We love it. Every day somebody calls me and says, guess what, Mike, I just got cloud architect hired. And I'm super happy. And that's why we came up with the term cloud hired, because my students call me and say, I got cloud hired, and I love it. It makes me super happy. So the point is, yes, you can definitely complete our training in less than 16 weeks. 16 weeks is based upon 20 hours a week of studying. So we've got students that do it sooner, but a lot of that is based upon how fast you learn, especially the communication skills, the ROI modeling skills, the negotiation skills. Sometimes that can be learned really quickly, like for healthcare people, and sometimes people are a little slower, but we can get you through sooner and get you hired, no problem, if you've got the time to do the work. That's the key, is having the time to do the work. I am more than happy to call recruiters on my students' behalf. I work with a huge team of recruiters. We have about 250 that we work with, but I'd say there's about 20 of them that we work with very closely. And I call these recruiters, and they literally put my people in an interview without a moment's notice, but I can't call the recruiters until I know the person's ready to be hired. So the answer is, I've had people do it in less than 16 weeks, plenty of them, but it's all based upon how much. The average user, 16 weeks, 20 hours a week is what it takes. Victor Williams, I knew your name looked familiar. You already paid for our course last week, but you're confused on which cloud architect career path. Do you need to understand how the cloud works perfectly to make your choice? Well, it's not that you need to know how the cloud works perfectly before you can make your choice, but you probably need to know what you're going to find interesting. So Victor, for example, in tomorrow's class, when we do an end-to-end architecture, when we do the security architecture, if you find that part of it interesting, I'd say security. When we do the networking, we start working on the BGP, and we start looking at the IP addressing scheme and the communications. If you find that interesting, I'd say focus on the network. So Victor, it's not a matter that you need to know everything to know what to learn. It's a matter of learn what's interesting to you. So I just don't know what's interesting to you. To me, security is interesting to me, and networking is interesting to me. Databases to me, even though they're highly valuable applications, databases to me and learning databases and working with them is like pure torture. Identity and access management, I mean, me trying to deal with that and thinking of users and groups and things, that will give me a headache that you can't even describe inside of a minute and a half. I mean, if I had to do that every day, I'd be in a psych hospital. I would hate it so much. But that's me. But I have a friend, Isaac, and he loves IAM, and he is an amazing IAM architect. And, his capabilities is some of the best I've ever seen. And he's so good at it and he loves it. So the key, Victor Williams, is really, from my perspective, is what do you like? So take a couple weeks. I'm not rushing you if you're in our program. Take the class on this Tuesday. Take Friday's class. Next Tuesday, next Friday, after 5 or 6 classes, you're going to know what you like. And then that's what we'll build your plan around. So it's not that you have to know everything ahead of time. I just want you to be happy. Now, I can tell you, the networking and the security side of this have incredible pay, but you got to be happy. So for me, Victor, I work a lot of hours, like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, like 7 days a week. I love what I do, so I don't work. This morning when I was arguing with the internet service provider, that was work for me. That was no fun. But, what did I do the rest of the day? I spoke to really nice people and answered their career questions, spoke to some recruiters about a student that I had. This is a good day. So, I'd say, I just want you to be happy, Victor, and we'll help you find your thing. So on tomorrow's class, if you attend midway through the class, say, hey, Mike, I'm finding this interesting, and then I'll help you build that plan. And if you didn't figure out next week, figure it out Friday. And if it takes you longer than 16 weeks in our program, Victor, because it takes an extra month to figure it out, we're not slowing you down. We're not rushing you. We'll keep you in there until you're hired. So really, it's just, I just want you to be happy, and I want you to love your life, and I want every part of it to be such a good experience. So if it takes an extra week or two, great. But you can ask me in class tomorrow. I'll do what I can to help you. And then Chris? Asim Hans, I mentioned industry certifications to help an interview. Would I have any recommendations for one in telecommunications linked to the cloud? Yeah, CCIE, CCNP, these kind of things are very helpful to you. Yeah, for a telco, because that's your networking things. Very helpful. So if you've got some questions, please ask your questions in the chat box and we'll come and answer your questions. We've got some time for some questions today. Kind of a relaxed day around here because all I did was argue with an internet service provider for the whole day. So we've got lots of time for your questions. So the next question is, you took the Google exam, which is terrific, and earned your professional certificate because you want to work for Google. Was it a bad idea? Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure that anything that you actually do is a bad idea per se. So the problem is that Google, is that Google is the smallest provider of the bunch. So when you get certified in something that has 5% market share, the ability to actually get hired is probably going to be really challenging with the Google one. So I would say it was not the best. What I would say is, if you have the Google one and you have lots of experience on your resume, it's going to be fine because you don't need a certification anyway if you've got experience. David, if you don't have a certification, I'd probably get an AWS or an Azure certification because you're going to need something, because that looks like it covers, say, 50% of the market. I would probably do, if you have the Google one, I'd probably do the AWS one as the second one. That'd probably be my next certification. And I think you need something that's generic enough for the industry. The Google's a little specialized. Now, I actually think the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam is the best because it's the only one where they actually ask any architecture questions at all, but it's still too small of a market share. So I would say get the Certified Solution Architect Professional and you should be okay. Now, I don't know about your background, T. David. I don't know about your business acumen, your communication skills, your architecture skills, your design skills, your ROI modeling skills. I don't know about your network and data center skills, but just purely from a certification perspective, I'd say the Google one, not enough market share, too specific, not enough to get an interview. To get an interview, realistically speaking, you need to get an AWS one or an Azure one, something bigger, and then you'll be okay. But I'm happy to answer any more questions you have. Chris, you want to bring in the next question? T. David, actually, is my course a one-time payment or a monthly subscription? David, our course is a single payment. I know the reason people are asking that question because most of the time courses like ours are about $25,000. Now, here's the thing. The reason our course is so cheap is I don't need to work when I started this company. And I would have never started this company had I not seen the training that was being provided by those certification providers. Here's really what happened. I was doing my $400 an hour private career coaching for the last 20 years. People would spend 10, 20 hours with me. I'd work on them one-on-one. They'd get a $200,000, $300,000 job. They were happy. I was happy. Life was good. I was retired. I was working like 20 hours a week. Life was really, really simple. Or I would do it. Sometimes I even did it as a volunteer in those days because I loved it. But that was really simple. And then I saw the training that was out there. Here's how I saw the training, T. David, is what happened is I was asked by my friend, would you train my kid to what's best? Because my kid's ready to graduate college with a computer science degree. So I said, sure, I'd love to. I love working with youth. So I told my friend that I would spend 2 hours with his son every Friday. I bought him the 3 best-selling AWS certification courses. 3 best-selling ones. So after 2 days, the kid calls me back that I'm training. It's not like I bought it for him on a Monday. On Friday, I'm going to work with him. Wednesday, he calls me back and he says, Mike, guess what? He said, I set up an EC2 instant and S3 bucket. What are they? I said, what do you mean, Nathan? What are they? He said, I don't know what this thing is. What is an instance? And I'm like, what do you mean, what is an instance? And he said, I don't know what an S3 bucket is. And I said to this kid, I said, Nathan, I said, if you're lazy, we are done. I said, I can't believe that anyone ever would make a course that doesn't explain the tech and they would just tell you the name of it and how to configure it. So Nathan said, watch it. I was horrified. I watched these 3 best-selling courses and it was just the name of the service and how to configure it. No one could ever get hired after that. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It's like teaching a doctor, here's some yellow pills. Give out your yellow pills. I'm not going to teach you how to diagnose. I'm not going to teach you what the condition's for, but here, give out some pills. And when I saw that, I was horrified, and that's why we created this company. And when I saw how bad that was out there, I actually made a video on how to get your first job. And literally speaking, within an hour, 30, 40, 50 people sent me an email and a LinkedIn message that said, please, Mike, create a program. And I felt so bad by what those certification providers were doing with regards to creating such bad content that I created this program for a single day's pay for a cloud architect. So no, it's a one-time payment. Now, people that do desire to use a payment plan, David, can split it amongst 3 payments. What they can do is they can go to the link, which Chris from my team put there, and where it says $9.99 on purchase, they can click that in that white box where it says $9.99, and it will give them the option to select 3 times $350. And people can do that. And then people can actually enter where it says have a coupon and enter that 20% coupon code that Chris put into the chat box. And that coupon will apply to every single payment. So there's those 2 ways of doing that, so to let you know. But the point is yes, it's a one-time payment, not a monthly subscription at that rate. But you could take that monthly payment and split it amongst 3 payments should you desire. Hope I answered your question there. So I'm sure there's lots more questions. Come and ask your questions. Love to answer questions. Asim Hans, thanks for your recommendation on CCIE. Do I have any programs for them? Also, what study material do I recommend you prepare for them? So for the CCIE, and one of these, we do have a course program coming for it in the next few months. Again, it's going to be cloud employment networking focused. It's going to be less certification focused and more getting hired focused. For my recommendation on the CCIE, I recommend you go to the Cisco website and you read their Cisco reading list. I do the same thing for the CCNP. Do not buy one of these Udemy programs. They are not good enough. You need good training. Good training is available at the Cisco Network Academy. Global Knowledge will make you some very good CCNP and CCIE training, but it's going to cost you $20,000 to $50,000 to get it. But you can buy those Cisco Press books for about $500. And after you can buy the Cisco Press books for about $500, you can buy yourself a server. And on the server, you can install EVE-NG, and you can build yourself an entire CCIE lab for about $1,500. So for about $500 worth of books and about $1,500 worth of software and servers, you can have a complete and total CCIE program and practice and do everything that you need to become a great CCIE. So that's what I would do for the CCIE. I would look for the original Cisco books from Cisco Press. Cisco makes it and they give you the best thing, but I would avoid any of those training programs that I would find on Udemy. I haven't found one to be good enough, and I've looked for them. I haven't found anyone that I would even consider to be close to acceptable. It's not that Udemy doesn't have a great platform. It's that architects like me typically don't make courses. I only do it because I feel that the community needs it and has no choice. Somebody has to help get all these AWS certified people hired. And that's me, because I've got 20 years experience in getting people hired. So I'm Mr. Cloud Hired, and I get people cloud hired every day. And that's what I do. That's the story of my life. So that's where I would get my CCNP stuff. I would go straight to the Cisco page. I would select the curriculum and I would buy the Cisco Press books. They're great value. I've got hundreds of them. I've read hundreds of them. If there's a Cisco Press book that comes out, I buy it, I read it. They're well written, they're well explained, and they're factually accurate, and they're checked by Cisco and written by Cisco. So you want to know Cisco exams? Learn Cisco. Cisco makes the exams. Their publications include the content in their exams. Best way to get it. And that's how I did my CCIE 25 years ago. Mr. Youssef, thank you, Mike, for answering your questions. What will happen to someone like you that intends to register now? Will you be missing out on previous sessions? Absolutely not. Not one bit. So, Youssef, we train people the way you train expert martial artists and the way you train physicians. So here's the way we do our training. Twice per week, we do architecture training. Architecture training. And in architecture training, we design systems. Now, we rotate through the design. So 1 week we'll be doing a service provider. 1 week we'll be doing a private cloud. The next week we'll be doing a multi-cloud environment for a retailer. A week after that, we'll do a multi-cloud environment for a bank. A week after that, it'll be a tech company we're going to design. So we're going to design architectures constantly, Yusuf. The way you design an architecture doesn't change ever. So all students are in the same architecture courses, regardless of where they're at in the program. So what happens is, let's say you were to join today, and you join you'll be in the in-person live architecture class tomorrow. What'll happen is, when we do the architecture work, in your first couple of classes, you're going to be sitting there in listen mode. You'll contribute a little, but the more senior students will design the architecture for the program, and you'll learn. 3 weeks later, when they're all hired, you're going to move up to the mid-tier student, and the more senior students are going to lead it, and you're going to help the more senior students. They'll get hired. A couple weeks later, you'll be the lead architects, and you'll be until you all get hired. It works great. So twice a week, we do a live, just like the way you train doctors, martial artists. You put a bunch of people together, and they all work together on the architectures. And we mix senior and junior. And by having senior people explain technology to junior people, that's a skill that you need to learn as an architect. You're going to be explaining technology to CEOs that are not tech people. So we do that. Now, the architecture training is twice per week. Now, in between classes, Mr. Youssef, what we actually have is independent work that you do on your own. So, you're going to do your own things, build your own plans, doing some lessons, fill in the information, the homework assignments, turn them in, and then we'll give you feedback on your homework assignment that you turn in via Slack. So you've got live training twice per week, and in between live training, we've got the class that self-paced things. And then there's a lab component, Mr. Youssef, that you do on your own. You'll be building a cloud when you're ready, and building firewalls and the VPN concentrators, and setting up Active Directory servers, and working with server virtualization, and building containers, and all these things, again, at your own pace. So you're not going to miss out on anything. And when you join, you'll even be able to look at the video classes from the previous 6 months. So you'll be able to see all the classes as well as the previous classes, should you want bonus training. I have some students that do that for bonus training, and they get hired real fast because they have such extreme knowledge on how to do things. So we never have a problem. Students come through constantly. They get hired constantly, and every single day I hear great things from my students. I probably even have some great students on this line right now that could tell you their good experience, but I'm not really sure who's in this room. So I can't necessarily answer that completely. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one, if there's any more. If there's not, feel free to ask some questions. I feel like we've been pretty efficient getting through some questions today. Some days we get some questions that take lots and lots and lots of answers. Sometimes we get ones a little easier. Cloud J, what do you think the future is for cloud? You say that old tech is the new tech, so anything new is on the horizon. So, Cloud J, what a great question. So here's the thing. I'm not necessarily sure that we've actually changed much over time. I'd say we've done what I consider to be natural evolutions. So the first cloud I worked with was Frame Relay, which was followed by ATM, which was followed by the RFC 2547 BGP VPN, which was followed by VPLS, which is followed by this cloud. So it's all incremental changes. So here's what I see. I see right now we're all going to the cloud. And why are we all going to the cloud? We're going to the cloud because of this auto scaling thing and the ability to buy what we need and scale on demand. Now, I think we've gone a little cuckoo and we all said, cloud, cloud, cloud. And what most people don't understand is the cloud's performance is less than the data center. The security is less than the data center. Everything about the cloud is kind of like a reduced functionality data center with some enhancements and reductions at the same time. So what I think you're going to see, Cloud J, is I think you're going to see a lot more multi-cloud work. One of the cloud providers had a customer in their cloud. The cloud provider did something that the customer did something in their business that the cloud provider didn't agree with. The cloud provider basically said to that customer, you're out of business, you're off our cloud, and the company went bankrupt. So ever since then, every CEO I've spoken to says hybrid clouds and multi-clouds will never do single cloud. So I think we're going to see a lot more hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environments. Two is, what are we doing right now in the cloud? Only lift and shift. We're taking our virtual machines from the network in the data center and moving them to the cloud. Now, in the process of doing this, we're finding out that there is no cost savings going to the cloud. That some organizations, meaning that are lucky enough to get up to 10% cost savings. Now, to take all that risk to possibly get up to 10% cost savings isn't there. So what I think you're going to see is two things. I think you're going to see a lot more private cloud sitting in the data center. We all love the cloud. What is so good about the cloud? The allocation and the deallocation of resources as you need it. So buying only what you need and not more. That is so transformational. The ability to purchase exactly what you need and nothing else. Wow, that's great. So what I see is going on in the cloud, I see the data centers are going to have their own private clouds. They're going to be connected to the clouds, and they're going to use the clouds for what the clouds are really, really good at. For example, the cloud is really good for big data applications because all the libraries are built. So machine learning, AI stuff, the cloud is amazing. Things that you want to automate them on the cloud. It's so much faster. Things that need auto scaling and unlimited capacity, move them to the cloud. Static website, software distribution, this kind of stuff, move it to the cloud. Extranets, let's say you've got a company like a car manufacturer that has to get parts from 1,000 different people and 1,000 different companies are all in the cloud. Connect to AWS, set up some private link services or a shared service VPC, get out the information. Amazing. So what I see is I think we're going to see a lot more in that data center. They're going to be adding the Nutanix or OpenStack Ansible type clouds. I think that's going to be connected to the AWS, Azure, and Google. I think organizations are going to start using the cloud for what it's good for instead of just testing it. And I think the cloud is everything. I think everything's going to go cloud. The data centers are going to go cloud. The clouds will go cloud, and the clouds will do things. Now, the other thing that I also see coming is more serverless. Now, as it stands right now, most organizations are doing lift and shift versus serverless. Lift and shift means take your stuff as it is, server, and put it on a virtual machine. Serverless does it without the server. Organizations right now are petrified to go serverless because they spend a lot of money to refactor their applications that go serverless. And once they're serverless, if they're on the vendor like AWS or Azure or Google, and the vendor raises the rates, the customer can't get off of serverless. So what I see really going on in the future is going to be as follows. We're going to have these hybrid data centers, which are going to be running their own clouds. We'll be connecting to multiple clouds. We'll be doing serverless, but the serverless is going to be more vendor agnostic. So instead of having a DynamoDB that forces you to recode everything just to use the AWS one and be stuck, maybe we'll use some tool like a Terraform to deploy it, and we'll have a NoSQL database deployed in a serverless environment across all of them, somehow replicating information. We're not there yet. Right now, for example, if we want to have a database across 3 clouds and we want a NoSQL database, we don't do things like DynamoDB or Google Cloud Bigtable. We use things like Apache Cassandra or MongoDB across the clouds and make sure we have network layer reachability information. So realistically speaking, that's what I see. I see so much more of the multi-cloud environment. And I see so much more of really boosting that data center, because with that data center, you're going to get really low latency disk performance. You're going to get incredible amounts of security in that data center should you lock it up right. On that data center, the disk performance and network performance you get is much better. But also, more importantly, on the data center side, you don't have to contend with latency, like getting to the cloud. So like when we start thinking about edge computing is somewhere like you take your data center, you connect to the edge, and then you connect to the cloud. So organizations are using the edge because it's got less latency than the cloud. But guess what? The data center has no latency. So by doing that, I think they'll even be better out there. So because we're dealing with something like that, for example, that's what I see. More serverless, more multi-cloud, and the data center is going to all be running clouds. And that's where I think the performance happens. And also, when the single data center is running a cloud, it'll be able to deploy on demand across multiple clouds. That's going to be some real magic, and it's exciting times coming up for us. Who has the next question? Christina, most of my students started at mid-level and senior level. I would say mid-level is pretty normal. I do have some students that get hired as senior level, but mid-level is much more normal for people that don't have a background than senior level. Occasionally senior level, but generally speaking, mid-level. But usually not intro level. Chad Varma, any good recommendations on data center and networking? Yeah, absolutely. My favorite recommendations, my favorite books for cloud architects that are coming to networking include the Internet Routing Architectures book by Bassam Halabi. It includes Routing TCP/IP Volumes 1 and Volume 2 by Jeff Doyle and Stevens TCP/IP. Now, Cisco has a data center, CCIE. And I found the Cisco Press books to be amongst the best data center books. But when it comes to data center, Chad, I think you can't just get it from one single place. So for the data center, I would say read the CCIE data center book. But you're going to have to go to F5 to learn about load balancers, DNS. You can go to F5 or Cloudflare or one of those people, read the RFC. Storage, you're going to have to go to Dell, EMC, and IBM to get some good storage information. You're just going to have to. It's not going to be available otherwise. So I'd say you can do those kind of things. Then I would say you can learn about server architecture from Dell and Lenovo. You probably should know that. You're going to need to learn about containers. Again, some of that will be in the CCIE things. Some of the container stuff you can get from Docker, some from VMware, some Kubernetes. The point is, when you're starting to look for all these informations, you're going to have to go to a combination of both books and the vendors themselves that make the technology and read how the technology actually works. So that's the best way I would describe that for you. Cisco Press books are probably my favorite. Look, there's a lot of books that I've read over the years, but the Cisco Press books are consistently good. They deliver an extremely large amount of content for the price. They're not the cheapest thing in the world, but for the amount of knowledge that you can get in a Cisco Press book, there's nothing else out there on the market that competes. Cybex makes a good book too, but the Cisco Press books are so much better. So much better. So who has the next question? Chat format. I know of any guys do this is with multiple projects versus a full-time? I know a lot of people that do that, chat pharma, an incredible number of them. Some do a bunch of small projects. Some do one full-time job with a single employer. It's more based upon what the person actually likes. I will tell you that, there really is a lot of times people would do multiple projects and do this consulting work so that, for example, let's say they had a salary job of like $120,000 a year as an IT guy or girl. They didn't want to, they wanted to get paid overtime. But if you're a really good architect, Chad Varma, you can make so much money that you don't need to have 3 or 4 little mini projects to earn a living. You can have one good full-time job. And if you focus on that business acumen, the communication skills, and the leadership skills, you will never need more than one job to have a good career. One will be more than enough. I mean, a lot more than enough. So you could do it both ways. I have people that do it both ways. Quite frankly, I've done it both ways many, many, many times. So the answer is you could do both. Figure out what's going to make you happier, and it's the right one. Be in business for yourself, lots of opportunity. Work for somebody else, lots of opportunity. Temporarily work for yourself and have work for somebody else. You could probably get away with that for a short time, but that's where you're pushing it, because there's going to be only a certain number of hours in the day, and if somebody's paying you, you need to get their stuff done. And if you're being paid by 2 people, you've got 2 masters, and that generally doesn't work very well. So just a thought. But people do multiple projects all the time, and you could too. Asim Haas, if one has a non-tech background, I mentioned it could take 8 months. Absolutely. Are the course classes accessible? The answer is yes. So Asim Haas, we don't take access to the training away. So people can attend our group classes, our live classes for upwards of a year, and they can access our content on our training platform for as long as they desire. We don't take it away. When we update the content, the students get new content. And we do this because somebody may have bought training for us a year today. They may have gotten hired from us 4 or 6 months later. But they may want to go back and look for things that help them get hired to work on architectures that maybe they did in the class. So we never take the students' content away. It's very important for us to know that when we train someone, we're building them a future. And part of the future is being able to go back and actually look at the lessons that we have. And in the process of doing that, really give people a future. So no, we don't take the content away. And if it takes someone 8 months versus 4 months, we don't charge anymore either. We don't care. All we care is that when people come to us, we get them cloud hired. That's it. We get them cloud hired. So that's what matters to us. So if it takes 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, it doesn't matter. As long as the person gets hired in the end, we're happy. That's all that matters. To us, it's never about just a certification. It's always about the outcome. The outcome must be cloud hired. If we don't get somebody cloud hired, then we're not doing our job. I could get anybody to pass a certified solution architect professional in a week if I gave them the right practice exam and the right certification training. But that wouldn't do anybody a goal. What gets people to have a good life is giving them the skills to really have that career. So that's why these things are super important to us. So, we're waiting for some new questions. And while we're waiting for some new questions, I'm going to talk about this interview program that we just created. I got to tell you, I've interviewed 5,000 people in my career. And getting hired and getting interviewed is really, really important. And, I have never been on an interview for which I didn't get hired. And my students, realistically speaking, those that have worked with me over the years, just do so well on getting interviewed and getting hired. But, it's important to be good at it. So what I did is we at Go Cloud Architects collaborated with IT Excel. And IT Excel is an organization that's got 20 recruiters in the New York City office. IT Excel has been placing my people in jobs for decades, and they're really good at it. In fact, they are such great recruiters that all I have to do for the most part is call them and tell them I have a student that's ready, and how long it takes for them to find somebody a cloud architect job or whatever kind of job is really fast because they're that good. They're connected with thousands and thousands of employers. So they're 20 recruiters, all spearheaded through their CEO and I and my team. We all got together to create the ultimate interview program for you, where we will teach you everything that you need to master the interview. how to establish rapport, how to get the hiring manager to like you, how to follow up from the interview to increase your chances. Literally speaking, to say the things that the hiring manager wants and how to get hired, how to ask the right questions, how to get hired. And we put, literally speaking, which didn't mean to knock over water here, we put 20 years, 20 plus people that each have 20 years experience in the getting people hired. So 400 hours of experience and over 25,000 interviews went into the production of this to help you to make sure that you will get Cloud Architect hired. Deliver a good interview. Not only get hired, you'll get paid a lot more. A good interview can have a $10,000 to $50,000 impact on your salary. So to go out there and help you, we've got this interview course. Normally speaking, there's a price to actually work 1 hour with me. People, lots of times I get called by 4 to 10 people per day that want to do private interview training with me. And I do as much as I can, but you know what? This whole course is going to cost half of a 1 hour private interview time with me. And for a limited time right now, we're offering a pre-sale at half price of that course. So it'll be a quarter of 1 hour of my time for people that want to work with me. So I'm super excited to do this. We've got over 20 hours of content in this program, and we know it'll help you get cloud hired. So if you're interested, please don't miss out on this great opportunity to get cloud hired and get some of the best interview training in the world that took 400 years worth of experience from recruiters and people like me that are career coaches. So it's coming. You can register right now and you can buy the pre-sale, and that course will be released very soon, like within the next 2 weeks, and people will be able to start accessing the content. Does anybody have any other questions? While we're waiting for questions, if you guys can type cloud hired in the chat box. And then if you've got any questions, let me know. If you've got no questions, we'll come back on Wednesday. But if you've got questions, I don't want to miss anybody's questions. I want to make sure we can do anything we can to help you all guys build the best cloud architect, cloud engineer, cloud computing career. Uncle DEA. I had a cousin David that I used to call Uncle Dave. I almost see that and wish that was him. I haven't spoken to him in ages. So Emmanuel, wonderful. Christine, wonderful. Uncle DEA, wonderful. Andrew Maxim, wonderful. So if there's any other questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, I will come back to you on Wednesday, and it's been a real honor and a privilege to be able to speak to you all today. Okay. Well, okay, there are some I was going to say. Tatienda. Tatienda said, I have just the talk, so apologies if this has already been asked. Do I need to purchase the course if you're already in the program? Tatienda, most of this content will actually be put directly into the Cloud Architect Career Development Program so that you guys will get most of the content for free. Asim Hans, yes, we help with resumes. It is absolutely not in the interview course. We help with resumes and teach salary negotiation and other things is part of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. In the interview course, we do not provide resume assistance. We provide interview assistance. But it's a great question. Okay, well, it looks like we've answered everyone's questions for the day. So unless there's any questions that come in, what we'll do is we will stop for the day. We will be back on Wednesday at 9 a.m. to answer any questions you may have. We should be back on Friday with the recruiters again. Love bringing in the recruiters. Always try and bring some of the best people in the industry to the show. So last week, for example, we had it looks like somebody's trying to type a question asking me to wait. So if there's a question, we'll answer this, but otherwise we will come back on Wednesday. But last week we brought in Daryl Proctor, a great person that I worked with for over 20 years, a great leader. He talked leadership. We brought in Aquo. Aquo's got a great background with regards to networking and shared his 20 years of networking experience with you guys. A week ago, I had Praveen, a big data architect, come on the channel and talk about big data. I've had the CEO of a large recruiting firm in New York come and speak to you guys recently. I had a VP over at NVIDIA come and speak to you recently. I had one of the executives from Versant Networks come and talk to you guys very recently. So I've had lots and lots and lots of wonderful people in here to try and help build your cloud architect career. So I don't see any more questions that are coming in. So thank you so much, and I will see you in another session coming very soon. Take care, everybody.